Let's revisit this triangular array that both you and I have been mucking around with.
Yep.
I've still got no experience of it. I'm getting close to installing one because Stefano at Messi and Poloni has sent me 100 meters of his 75 ohm, 86% velocity factor coax.
Good stuff.
Or 80, or whatever the RG11 equivalent is. Okay, yep. It's similar. 83 is it? I can't remember
83.
what the 83. It's basically it's Messi and Poloni's RG11, or is it RG? I think RG11 is better than RG6.
Yes.
And I've got some nice connectors, so I can. I'm just going to trust Messi and Poloni's measurements. I'm going to cut it as per the velocity factor. Okay.
Yep.
Right then, so I'm just going to head down to my little notebook here to remind people what a triangular array is. So you have a straight vertical, and then we have another straight vertical. These are the base here, and then we'll put another straight vertical there. Now, it must have been 2 or 3 years ago now, John, because I undid your box, and on the back of it, it's got, I don't know, Happy Christmas or something.
Yeah.
1843 or whatever the date was that you made it for me.
It was a fine year.
It was a good Chateauneuf de Pape year. And but let's just so everybody, you have your radio, over here somewhere, and a bit of coax, and then we've got this jiggery pokery going on, where we need to split the signal into 3 wires, coaxes, okay? Right. And effectively, they don't actually make a T-piece or a 4-piece, do they, with 1 in and 3 out. You just got to do that yourself. You just got to wire it yourself. Right. And then, and I'm saying this so you can correct me, John, if we want the signal to go this way, we put a delay line from our box here, which will expand, okay, coax in, coax out 3 ways, 1, 2, 3, and that's number 3. We're coming in here. This point here, we'll put a delay line in.
Yeah, Callum, it's going to flow the other way.
Oh, is it flowing the other way? Beg your pardon. The delay line flows backwards. Right.
So if you have the delay line in on that one,
the forward direction.
Yep. And the back is on time. It meets with the front element that's got the delay in it, and they couple. In that way. Yep, absolutely.
They go that way. Now, is that the same as a 2-element phased array? The delay line go forward?
Yep. The delay line's always going to be the forward element.
Okay, I'm just trying to imagine the sine waves, if you know what I mean, and what catches up with what first, and what, because you want them to end up in phase, so you end up with more energy going one direction and less energy the other direction.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm glad I'm running through this with you.
Well, I had it the same way. When I first designed the thing, I was thinking it was going to flow the other way, and then I started doing some research, and we could talk about MMA and how it handles those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I discovered that when you delay the element, that's the direction everything flows.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
If you know any different in the comments, we're always up for grabs. Okay, fine. So this delay line then. Okay, now we're talking degrees. Now I did a video about degrees and phasing harnesses and velocity factor. I'll put them in the description below. Just 5-minute videos just to get you up to speed. But effectively, we're after kind of... Now, John, would it be a quarter wave delay line here?
Well, you can do it a couple different ways. It's going to change the pattern. And the thing you have to realize is when I designed this, I was thinking simple and being able to use it across many bands. So you could put up a 20 or 40 or an 80, whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now, the big trick is to get all this stuff to divide equally. Okay.
Yes.
And we're not going to get that exactly with what we've got. Okay.
No.
So, because mutual coupling and a bunch of other complex mathematical problems.
Yeah.
You're going to get...
You never get it cock on. Is that what you're saying?
You'll never get a cock on, and it's never going to divide equally. I mean, there's ways to make it work, but you have to have a tuned circuit, and that makes it mono-banded. So what you're going to have here is you're going to have somewhat of a pattern. And if you look at MMA and the pattern we come out with MMA, we get a little, it kind of looks like a card spade, where you get a little bump off the back and a big bump off the front.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll put a cutaway on the screen for you guys to see it. Yeah.
And it'll be kind of that, but it's just going to depend on it. But yeah, you want to delay, and the delay is going to change your pattern a little bit. So if you look at the antenna and you say, okay, we're going to go 90 degrees, you're at 90 degrees, you're probably going to pull the back end a little bit in and push the front end out a little bit, and maybe get a better front to back. But you're probably going to give up your beam width. So I think when I went through all the modeling, 60 degrees to 75 degrees was a sweet point where you got good front to back, and you got good beam width, and you got good gain. Okay. So
good compromise.
Good compromise for all three of the things you're looking for out of this type of antenna. So
it's 60 degrees of 360, which is, a quarter wave is 90 degrees. Watch the video. Watch the video. I did that really well, I thought.
He did a real good job of that.
Okay, fine. So about 60 degrees. And then we have to cut the velocity factor off as well, don't we?
Right. Now, there's going to be, when you cut for frequency for a delay line or even a quarter wave line, because of velocity factor, you're going to get what they call a check frequency. So you'll have the frequency you're targeting, and then they take the velocity factor out of that, and you're going to put a connector on one end. You're going to run the cable out, and you're going to start cutting that end while you're looking at the impedance, the Z impedance of the circuit. Yeah. Not the R, or the X, but the Z, the total complex impedance. And you look to get that as close to zero as you can. It's never going to go to zero, folks. I can tell you from experience, I've cut plenty of phasing lines. You might get it down below an ohm, but chances are it's going to be 1.2, 1.3.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where you end up.
Okay. And on HF, how critical is it to get it to within the inch?
It's pretty critical for the phasing, right?
Would that be for a single delay line, or would that be for all these lines?
You want all your lines as close as you can to being what you're looking for. So, again, every bit of detail you put into it is going to give you more out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's just run through, if you wouldn't mind, John, for me, let's say what basic tools I'm going to need. I'm going to need some sort of analyzer. Do I need a dummy load?
At this point, no. You can, if you want to look at your SWR, and you would actually need 3 dummy loads, Callum.
Oh, of course, to replicate these 3 here.
Right.
Okay, so I've got my analyzer and I've got my coax, and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to put a connector on the end. Then what do I do? Okay,
so once you get your phasing line cut, then you're going to have feed lines and then your delay line. So once you get them all cut,
that's true. We got the 3 pink lines here, and then we got this delay line as well. Yeah.
So once you do that, you're going to put your other ends on, and you're going to attach them to the box. And if you want to check and see what your real SWR is going to look, or what would be considered your total drive impedance, you're going to put dummy loads on all 3 and hit it. Yeah. Again, those dummy loads are going to give you what it's going to look like at 50 ohms, but
assuming it's 50,
yeah. And at the end, you may have 36. You may have, it depends on ground losses. So, but you'll get an idea what your drive SWR is, and it really is going to be about 2
coming down here,
1 to 1. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and to measure for the velocity factor and to get my 60 degrees right, you did run through that, but just run through that again for me.
Okay, so if you want 60 degree angle, I'm gonna got a little spreadsheet up here, and I'll tell you, and I'll send you the spreadsheet, Callum. Cool. Your target frequency, what are you going to do it for? 7.1?
7.15. 715 to 7.2. I mean, I don't go above 7.2, but
right, so we'll make it 7.5 because it's going to be 1.
So 715, yeah.
Yeah. So if you go 60 degrees, 7.15 at 83% velocity factor.
Yeah.
Your check frequency is 10.725 megahertz. Your cut length is 19.3 feet. I can do it in meters if you want it.
That's fine, yeah.
And then your approximated length when you finish cutting this thing is going to be about 18.26 feet, so about 18 and a quarter feet.
And how am I measuring that Z?
So you're going to put your antenna analyzer on. If you use a Rig Expert like I do, you're going to set your check frequency or your frequency on the analyzer to 10.725.
Yeah.
And then you're going to hit number 8, which gives you all the parameters for that piece of coax.
Yes.
And you look at the Z on there, and Z will give you, when you get close, and you're going to be probably, when you put this thing first on, if you put one connector on, you're going to probably looking at 3, maybe 4 ohms.
Yeah.
You can take a pretty big cut, maybe an inch, and then you start cutting smaller and smaller and smaller and watch that number drop.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's never going to go directly to 0.
No.
And so you might get an ohm, maybe an ohm 0.2. You might get under an ohm. It just depends on how good the coax is. With mesium polonium, you might get under an ohm.
Yeah.
But just keep cutting.
And is that just that coax open at the other end?
Yeah, exactly. Open at the other end. Connectorize one end, leave the other open.
So is that that frequency you gave me, is that a kind of a half wave at some frequency or something? What's that doing, do you think?
I'm trying to think. It's let me look and see how this works. Target frequency times the phasing angle. Okay.
Yeah. That's We're looking at. It sounds like a quarter wave or a half wave at that frequency.
Well,
to get this in.
The frequency is going to be what it would be at 60% for a quarter wave.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. That's fine.
Because at a quarter wave, your impedance goes to 0, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We're halfway through or a quarter way through the cycle.
Your impedance goes to 0, your voltage goes up, and your current goes down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you first jumped into this, you thought, "Oh, this is really simple, right?"
All naive as I could be.
I just love it. And isn't it funny in this world that this ham radio thing, every time you find out something else, you realize how little you knew about it.
Exactly.
I know.
What I came up with was so simple, right? And it's the reason I came up with it is so simple is because everybody's probably looked at this thing, at least smarter eggheads than me have looked at it and said, that is not really going to work as good as you think it is. So it's one of those things you live and you learn, you experiment. It's part of what ham radio is all about. You experiment. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, you go back to the drawing board and try again.
So this is quite good because originally, and I'll put a cutaway on the screen of you guys, this box here, right? I mean, this is the naive John's box here, right? I mean, it is, isn't it?
It is.
And funnily enough, I've looked at, I think Array Solutions do a triangular array. And I'm now just literally in the last sort of 48 hours starting to realize why they've made it the way it is, And there's a big coil in there, there's a tuned circuit,
Yeah,
fascinating.
If you go into ON4UN's book, and it's that is a really good book, and the new ARL antenna book, both have triangular arrays in them.
Okay,
they're
so built, conceptually, they're as we came up with the idea.
Exactly.
It's just this bit. There's more thinking that's gone into it to get to split that signal evenly. Perfectly, the current evenly, and give you a decent match at the other end.
Right.
At the feed point.
You're gonna this box I've built, I don't know, dozen of them now.
Yeah. And
it works. In fact, Andy, AA0AM, this past weekend put one up, and he got good reports off of it. Yeah. So it's going to work. It's just not the most efficient and probably not the best design for it.
Yeah.
But if you want something simple
the
to
cheapest,
experiment,
isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Because that's where I was going to come to before we closed off. if Joe Soap, just wanted to put up, three, short poles for 20 meters.
Mm-hmm.
These purple lines in here, okay. Wait a minute. We haven't discussed them. But anyway, he built these. He built one delay line, just literally connected it together. It's a non-switchable, let's say, right? Yep. He would get some gain in this direction if he's delaying it here. He gets some gain, all right? And that's probably worthwhile. Do you think it's as probably the same, isn't it, as a 2-element if he just phased those?
It's
reality.
In reality, with the way it's designed, you're probably going to get maybe a little bit more out of this. The beauty of 3 elements is going to allow you to switch it in 3 directions.
Yeah.
Versus,
I mean, he could literally go out to the field, unscrew the delay line, put it in a different direction because it's now the morning and he wants Australia, whatever. You could do it on the cheap.
Yep, and you could do it a parasitic too. You could ground one of them and split and put a T-splitter in on the other.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yep, and that's the original design when I came up with after watching your videos, and I don't know how many years ago that's been, probably 3 or 4 years, Callum. When you did the video, when you first talked about the triangular array, and you talked about it parasitically. I built 2 of them for field day, one on 40, one on 20. They worked fantastic, but we soon realized that going out to the field, stopping transmissions, changing everything around, it took a long time. So we were like, you know what? Let me see if I can switch a delay in. And that's when I came up with what I came up with, which obviously I didn't think all the way through it, didn't do enough research, but it'll work. It's just not going to be the most efficient antenna. You're probably going to see maybe 3.5 dB gain out of this thing over a standard single element. So there's your 3 dB for Christmas.
That's right. Well, I've been playing with 3 dB for Christmas on the vertical parasitic just recently, and had some runs into the US, late at night for us. It's evening for you guys.
Yep.
Let's just quickly talk about these purple lines from your control box to these verticals. Have they just got to be equal, or have we got to? We're thinking about it. They've got to be spot on somewhere along the line, haven't they?
So when I designed it, when I deploy it, it's 90 degrees. So I use quarter wave lines there.
Fine. That's the velocity vector,
right? And that's going to give you, 90 degrees minus the velocity factor. So quarter wave built in. Yeah. So if you were looking at a quarter wave on that, 90 degrees with the same vector. Yeah, you're going to be, your check frequency is exactly the same as your finding frequency.
Okay, and did we work out what the distance was?
So
between the bases,
I've played around with that. It works anywhere from about 0.2 wavelengths up to 0.3 wavelengths.
Okay, not too critical.
It's not really critical. It's going to stretch your pattern just a little bit. Okay. With quarter wave feed lines, you probably want to keep this thing about a quarter wave on these sides. So don't forget, with a triangle, your top is not actually a quarter wave away from your bottom.
No.
Right. So I figured it out. It's crap. What I did end up doing is make 2 right triangles out of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
working it out.
Quarter wave. Square it minus the half of the bottom.
That's right. Yeah.
And then take the square root of that.
But if from there to there
is a quarter wave,
and there to there is a quarter wave,
right?
Then you can
make that,
do a calculation, work out exactly what that distance is. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Or just get a big long tape measure and make sure that they're all the same.
What I did is I ended up getting a center point.
Okay.
And then measuring
off 90 degrees at it.
And 90 degrees off of it. And I went either way, here and here, at half the distance I wanted. And then what I did is I took the other one and I made sure I was 90 degrees off of the center point and measured it 90 degrees that way.
Yeah, fine. Okay, so hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, that has inspired you, all right, just to understand a little bit more. But as John John is saying there's always more to this stuff than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
So ON4UN, I've got that book.
Yep.
And I think if you're interested in 40 and 80, well, any band really, because it does actually apply. The same principles apply to everything.
Right. You're just going to change that tune circuit and your feed lines and all that kind of stuff. But it's in chapter 11, I believe it is.
Okay, brilliant. All right, John. Have a jolly good day, mate. Thanks for joining us today. And if you stay tuned, we will be installing John's toy, either on 40 or 80. I haven't made my mind up. John, thanks a lot, mate.
My pleasure. 7-3 all.
It pisses me off that every time I take a step forward, I take a step back at the same time.
Yeah, believe me, it's been frustrating for me too.
Incredible.
So happy with that. And again, for me, the performance has been good, what I've found. But, but it is, if it's this
it can
simple,
always be better.